Mostly known as a playwright and director with a love of experimental theater, Tina Landau has taken a deep dive into Bikini Bottom with Broadway's new SpongeBob SquarePants. Featuring a fantastic score written by rock stars, eye-popping visual design, and an unforgettable set of characters, this new musical is a creative explosion from start to finish. Landau recently stopped by to talk about her inspiration for the project on the eve of the show's opening night. Welcome, Tina.
Hi.
How are you feeling?
To be here.
You've been putting together a big Broadway musical for years, and you're about to give birth to it.
I know. I try not to think about the length of time because it staggers me.
I saw the show. I fell in love with the show.
I'm so glad.
And I have to tell you, I walked into this show knowing nothing about SpongeBob SquarePants, but I walked in and I just sort of fell in love with this world you created, and it's a theatrical representation of this show. But you also kind of walked into this project not knowing that much about it.
No, I watched the series a couple times because I have nieces and nephews. But when I first got the call about doing the show from my agent, who said, "Do you want to go in and pitch? They're seeing directors because they want to start with a visual approach." I said, no, I'm not interested, because all that could go through my mind was like a big stadium show or a show with big mascot.
A guy with a big sponge, a guy with a big rubber sponge.
Yeah. But once they said, no, we're not looking for a literal representation. We want to explode it open in some way and find some new life, a new way that this brand can live on stage. I thought, well, that's an interesting challenge. Let me do a little research. And then I did, and then I fell in love with it.
The funny thing is, one thing I was told from the beginning is little kids love SpongeBob and stoners love SpongeBob. I was told these two facts.
I know, it's amazing. The show is accessible to children, but I would say the audience that is really eating it up is like 20s to 40s. And I think, I don't know why. They grew up with it. And Ethan, our lead who plays SpongeBob, Ethan Slater, was actually watching SpongeBob the day he got a call to come in and audition for this. So I also just want to say about what you said about not knowing the show. We really tried to build it so there was enough Easter eggs for those that do know it and love it, and yet introduce the world and the characters from scratch for people who don't.
Yeah, and apparently rock stars love SpongeBob SquarePants too, because your score is incredible. And so you have a score created by a bunch of rock stars, but it feels like a Broadway score. I don't know how you did it. I assume Tom Kitt was a big part of that.
Tom Kitt is a genius, big part of it. You know, the thing is, the SpongeBob world invites variety and mashup and juxtaposition. So I knew from the beginning that the score had to be less cohesive than it had to have tremendous variety, and in the same way that the show does. And we asked the composers to write in their own voices. We were very specific with the moments and what we asked them to write. And so they came in really telling the story and right for that particular moment. And almost to a person, when we asked, the response was yes, and a lot because they love SpongeBob.
Wow.
So who knew?
And so Kyle Jarrow wrote the book.
Yes.
He's sort of a new on the Broadway scene.
Yes.
What was this collaboration like, and how did you figure out what the story would be?
It was interesting. We did a workshop first that was just about physical movement before Kyle was even on board, because before we even got into story, we wanted to see, is this idea insane or is there some seed of something here? So then Kyle came in, and that was great because he had a whole kind of physical and visual world to inspire him. And we had, I think, about 3 big story ideas that we pitched and ended up with the one we have now. And we knew simply that an audience had to care and be interested for 2.5 hours as opposed to 11 minutes, and that the stakes had to be high.
I was unexpectedly touched by the show. And so it really ends up being sort of this beautiful story about friendship and about community. Why does this story sort of work for this?
Well, first of all, it's a world where the logic is its own. So if they say, oh, there's a volcano named Mount Humongous and it's going to erupt tomorrow, you just buy it because the rules are all invented. And SpongeBob is the eternal optimist. He's wonderfully naive and childlike and has hope and belief that things can work out. So he's the perfect hero to, you know, be plopped inside of a community that is tearing itself apart, mostly because of fear. You know, it's sort of a portrait of what happens in a society when people feel threatened and how they act out on each other and their town.
In other words, extremely timely.
You know, so it turns out.
Right,
yes,
so it turns
exactly.
out.
No, the show has gotten increasingly timely.
Yeah, it's
you know,
fascinating.
And we've never worked to put very specific topical things in it. We've kind of done the opposite. But yeah, I'd say it's universal to, you know, the fall of Rome and perhaps the current USA moment.
David Zinn, your set designer, created this big, beautiful world that you experience the minute you show up for the show. But what I love about your work on the show is that it seems like you really went out of your way to have moments in the show. So many dramatic moments are actually done very simply and very theatrically. And there's not a lot of high tech. But within this big, beautiful set, a lot of what's happening is actually really simplistic and very theatrical, which is what I really love about your work.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad you saw it that way. That's what we aimed for. We wanted the audience to come in and be in an environment. You know, one of the things I said to Nickelodeon at the get-go was, if we do this on stage, it has to be because it's live, and we are there with it, not looking at it in a proscenium, because we do that on a TV or a computer or a movie screen. So let's make a world that we enter, place the audience inside Bikini Bottom, and then within that arena, allow the piece to unfold in ways that are as simple as things that happen on the TV show, which is, you know, SpongeBob and Patrick make magic from a cardboard box. And that was always sort of my model. Like, well, what object could we use to do this thing? Because that's what Bikini Bottom is. It's made up of found objects at the bottom of the ocean. What
did you love as kids? Like, do you remember your early theatrical?
Early theatrical?
Yeah, what like really like sparked the theater magic for you?
Well, I grew up here and I was taken to theater every weekend. So, you know, Dreamgirls, Chorus Line, saw the originals.
Okay.
I mean, I knew I wanted to be a director when I was 6.
Wow.
It was either a director or an oceanographer, for real. Like, I always had to think about being underwater.
And now you're underwater in
and now I'm doing both. Yeah, exactly.
As someone with roots in experimental theater, is creating something like Bikini Bottom for Broadway the ultimate?
SpongeBob feels like an expression of everything I am. I mean, in terms of, you know, yes, experimental theater and slightly avant-garde techniques, but also my love of the American musical, my crazy childlike love of play, like, and I've gotten to just live in that for so long, and I feel like I've received so much joy from the material.
Well, I think you're giving joy to audiences.
Joy's the word.
I definitely felt it. So congratulations.
Thank you, Paul.
Happy opening.
Thank you so much.
I can't wait to see it again. You're going to see me in Bikini Bottom again.
Yay. I hope so.
Thanks for coming in.
We will welcome you. Thank you.